Hey everyone! In the second OBXAV tutorial episode, we'll dive into how to make your own sounds while exploring some of the really unique features. So, let's begin. The whole set of features within this part are called stereo modules. To hear it in action, make sure to put the headphones on. Stereo spread comes with two modes, stereo and pan. The pan mode is set by default, and it allows to set the different panning settings per voice. You can access the panning for each voice by unfolding this secret tab. To try it out, trigger some notes one by one. Then, do the same by setting different values for each one, while increasing the spread knob. If it's set to 0, the signal is heard in full mono. Using high values will produce the full stereo effect. A cool tip we can give you here is to set the spread knob as the modulation destination in the mod matrix. This will produce the nice movement between the mono and full stereo, which is great for slow and morphing sounds. The second mode, called stereo spread, dives even deeper into the stereo image of the signal path. It's a really unique feature that makes this instrument super special. To access it, make sure to unfold its section above the pitch bend. It provides 3 amount trimmers for each module: LFO, oscillators, and filter, plus the movement section that acts as an LFO that is equipped with the modulation's rate controls. To see it in action, let's do a little pre-work by closing down the cutoff to around 0.220 and increasing the resonance to around 0.700. You can also increase the spread amount. You can hear that the signal suddenly got wider. To hear how the stereo spread influences the filter, turn the filter knob to the higher values. It's starting to sound nice, but it can get even more interesting. To accelerate that movement, you can increase the amount and rate knob. One more thing. The filter trimmer inside the stereo spread section is, as you would assume, available as the mod source in the advanced panel. Let me fine-tune this sound now. Sounds great, right? Now, I don't know about you, but I've always wanted to have a stereo filter in my synths. By the way, the little visual box on the left side will help you to understand how the signal behaves. Pretty cool, isn't it? This quirky feature can do more than that. It also has a pretty interesting influence on the oscillators. With a spread knob set like this, try to move the oscillator trimmer across its whole range. You'll notice that the closer you'll get to the extreme positive or negative values, the more the function will double or copy the oscillator's voices. This will place them on the right and left channels, allowing them to take up much more space in the stereo image and making them sound wider. The higher the spread value, the more space the doubled voices will take up in the stereo image. Movement knobs will speed up the movement of the oscillator trimmer as well. Last but not least, the LFO trimmer affects the stereo image of the signal coming out of the LFO in the modulation section that you can see on the front panel. This is where it gets freaky. To hear what it can do, try to modulate the oscillation 1 frequency with LFO's rate set to 0.200 Hz and depth to 0.800. At this point, you hear the LFO working in mono mode. To make it swirl across the stereo image, set the spread knob to the maximum amount and play around with the LFO trimmer by changing its value from negative 180 to 180. Make sure to also try the different LFO settings. Each waveform and rate will produce really interesting effects. OBXAV comes with its own advanced panel that contains a lot of additional features. It's based in 3 parts: Mod Matrix, Function Generators, and Effects section. Mod Matrix provides 5 expressive sources: velocity, keyboard, which modulates a parameter depending on how low or high in octaves the triggered note is, aftertouch, mod wheel, and filters envelope. These are dedicated to all of you who love to play keys. You can easily assign each of those modulators to over 50 parameters per source. A classic use of this function would be to assign velocity of your MIDI keyboard or piano roll to the filter cutoff. Function generators come in handy when you need additional modulation sources. Their flexibility allows them to work as envelopes, LFOs, or sequencers. You can easily create your own shapes by creating multiple points and placing them on the upright grid. You can pick their destinations by unfolding this tab. Let's go for the oscillator 1 frequency, then set the amount to 0.6 and press play. Now you are modulating the oscillator 1 pitch with your own modulation shape. The mod sources can affect the same 50 destinations as the mod matrix. You can obviously apply different modulation amounts per function. You can also use some shape presets to start with, and then edit those to make them more personal to your style. One of our favorite things to do here is to run an arpeggio sequence and then modulate its rate parameter with a random function shape. This will make your arpeggios sound really unique. Effects always bring that special touch for each sound, and this is no different for OBXAV. It's equipped with some of the best effects that our software developers have ever made. There are 3 slots available, and each one can hold one of the 9 effects. You can set them up to work in a chain, where one is applied after the other, or in parallel. Let's listen to some of those. The remaining effects to work with are delay, chorus, flanger, phaser, overdrive, compressor, bit crusher, and multimode filter. To wrap up this video with a bit of fun, let me show you the track that's been produced for this tutorial. We'll check how the OBXAV sounds in the mix and break down one of the used presets. Nice! All the sounds in this song came from OBXAV. Now let's see how this particular chord sound was made and how we can reproduce it in OBXAV. First things first, we need to set up our sound sources. These are the 2 oscillators. Their settings can be kept as the default with the sawtooth waveform. We can now introduce the second oscillator in the mixer section and set a little detune amount as well. The next module to set is the filter. This will make our sound a bit dim for a moment. We will set it to 4-pole mode with a 24 dB slope and adjust the frequency knob to around 0.260 with the resonance to around 0.700. The filter's modulation parameter can stay in its central position. To transform the nature of the notes, let's use the chord mode. We can click this button to activate it and set the notes to create a chord. Let's go for D sharp, G sharp, and A sharp. Now you can play your chords with just one finger, which is super handy. At this point, we have our foundation ready. Now we need to fine-tune our growing preset by adding some variations and a bit of movement. We can start by setting up the LFO. The rate should be set to a relatively low value in Hertz, with the sine as the waveform. Our desired destination is the filter frequency parameter, with the amount set to maximum. We're now getting closer to the end result. The remaining steps include working with a function generator. We can access it in the advanced panel. Once we get there, we will draw the triangle-like shape in the first function generator slot. Our shape should look more or less like this, with its peak closer to the right side and the slightly curved lines. We can set it to cycle to the speed of 4 bars and pick the filter frequency as the destination and set its amount to 100%. Now, independently from the LFO, the filter cutoff will be opened and closed by the function generator as well. We're almost there. We'll focus the final touches on the stereo spread function. To achieve some cool movement within the stereo image, let's pick the stereo mode and work with the LFO and filter trimmers. Let's set the LFO one completely to the left and the filter completely to the right. The display will now show what is happening within those parameters in the right and left channels. We can also increase the amount of the movement and rate trimmers to strengthen the influence of the LFO and the filter trimmers. Now all we have to do is set the spread amount to hear it in action. You can see how drastically it changes the sound, making it more fluid and active inside the stereo image. It's a total game changer. Let's add a bit of delay and reverb on top, and we're ready to go! Sounds really cool. There you go, it's as simple as that. Okay, that's a wrap. We covered our virtual instrument in detail, and I hope that you enjoyed seeing this punchy synth in action. For all the details, make sure to visit our website. Thanks for watching and see you soon.